Hello. So it seems like we are quite a small group today. So make even more use of that by just asking questions whenever that is the case. I gave you the analogy of like we are being kind of a class. Okay, I'm the teacher, but still you guys are all classmates and it's easy to talk to me, not like back in school. And yeah, make use of that. You can talk to each other in the chat. Make sure to write to everyone and not just me when you send a message. And then we can make that a fun afternoon and learning a lot, hopefully, as well. All right, so I am just reading from Tom Mon 3 minutes ago, who had really great input in the little thread I made about today's coaching. So we will work hard on the questions he asked, because I guess that was very, very good stuff. So if you're watching the recording now, Tom, then this will be for you. It's a little sad that you can't be here, that he cannot be here, but things happen. I know it's freaking 3 p.m. in the afternoon, but I need to be done before the 6 p.m. matches and I have a 1-hour drive ahead of me. So, first things first. Yeah, so that's for everyone watching the recording. It's still the Euros, and maybe you know the story already, and Germany busted versus Hungary. I hope not. Let's see. And I guess we're ready to go, right? If you are ready, I am. Don't worry if I look a lot at that screen. This is where the chat is. I try to keep an eye open on that. It's different than the coachings I did together with Simon, where, well, you have two people looking at stuff, so I might get a little distracted, but we'll start today's topic. And actually, this is something I want to do that I forgot, is the one that you chose, taking a deeper look at the general concept. And what I'm doing right now on the side is actually logging in to our awesome platform to just go through that rather quickly. Let's see. Awesome face of Fedor. Let's switch to cash game. Oh, we got there already. 4% of the course. I didn't work that through. I hope you enjoyed the introduction, got the little overview there. So I will just talk lots of general stuff today, since it's the very, very first community coaching for the cash game side. It is not about cash game today. Actually, it is about general concepts, general approaches. So this is pretty much for everyone. But still, I want to catch all you guys that signed up for the cash game now in the last month and make it for you. And yeah, we'll start focusing on this part here. You chose the general concepts, pre-flop and post-flop. Post-flop was like a good second place. We'll have more looks there as well. If you didn't check that out already, last week we released already the next theory video, 24 minutes on fundamentals part 2. I split that up into 2 parts. So if you missed that and just binge watched the whole show on the start and you feel like there wasn't anything new since then, check out this video. And now let's go to the general concept. So I just put the introduction there. There's obviously not a concept. That is just something that needs to be there. I want to take your hand and show you around a little what my thought processes is behind the structure. Again, this is not a course of 100 hours of videos and stuff. I don't want to overload it, and I wouldn't enjoy the process at all either. So we start with that, I guess, like 20, 25 videos, and I will put more out there. I have something in the pipeline for you, though, so don't worry about that. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. If there are any questions regarding that, feel free to fire, but I guess that's covered pretty well. And now we'll start looking at the first of the real concepts, right? I named it general approach because actually before we get to the table, I'm thinking about, hey, what should we focus on? And we'll have a look at those 3 questions, especially. I think we skipped this here. This is pretty obvious. This is just my answer to a question. Rock, paper, scissors. I'm not really sure. I will use that example quite often when we talk about reads and how to exploit. We will talk a lot about how do I study, or how to study in general today. And I'm not sure whether that makes the cut, but let's see. So this is the first topic that we are starting today. And yeah, let's jump into it with my 3 questions. So I don't have a prize, but I would be very proud of the first one, the fastest one, who can write down my 3 questions in the chat right now, right? 10 seconds should do the thing, right? I'm looking at the chat. Go ahead. What I wrote down here is just like, I shouldn't need to write that down anymore, right? So Gustavo, here we go. Let's freaking go. Come on, number 2. One more. You got to try harder, right? So what is the correct play? What is villain doing wrong? What are the potential exploits? I don't know whether that was the exact question, but what is the right exploit? That is all fine. And I hope, right, I will repeat that pretty much in any coaching session, because every time we look at a hand or something, this structure will be part of it. And by having that, we already covered the whole GTO versus exploitative topic already, because we need to look at both sides. We need to know the freaking baseline to then see how villain deviates, to then keep going and know and prepare the right exploits. So I will hammer that in your heads. That's like the alphabet that you learn in school, right? So this is just, you will need it whenever you write down anything. Yeah, so this is the first slide. I hope this was a little fun to start. I don't have a Kahoot quiz today. Still try to be active. Shoot messages anytime. I'm having one eye on that side there. And yeah, let's see what is next. And I guess we get to the first question. Very, very great question that came in, well, 20 hours ago. So yeah, and this is just the question regarding my 3 questions. So let's go through that step by step. Tom asks here regarding the what would be right. I'd like to hear more about how do we know or even agree what is right? Where should my time be spent when trying to find out what is right? All solvers, changing solvers input can change what is the correct output, right? So I don't know whether that is a perfect sentence, but we get it, right? Looking at other good players, winning players is an option. And yeah, I just wrote down there to not lose track that I want to give you some thoughts and want to put that in some type of context. So first of all, we are living in a poker world where lots of part situations are solvable, right? So it's not like we are guessing, right? It's like, yeah, c-bet is good because we can represent a strong hand. Yes, it's somewhat true, but we know more about that. So often we do not know what is right exactly, but we know in which direction things are going. And actually, the other way around, we can often say when something is clearly wrong. So this can be stuff that, okay, I focus mainly on coming to one of the other parts that was actually part of the building your wardrobe. I focus always first on action game. Remember that? Action game, reaction game. Action game means we are setting the parameter. We are forcing villain to play under our framework, like using our parameters. So this is the first step where we can say he's doing something wrong. If I'm 3-betting cutoff versus MP, and I'm c-betting and I know exactly how my range structure looks like, and he calls a hand that is never a call, he is making a mistake. So I could make the note, well, we are just here at what would be right. We know what would be right, and therefore we will find out how that villain made a mistake. So this can be right. Focus on the action game. So let's go step by step again. How do we know or even agree what is right? When we set the parameters, we set the framework, we can easily say what is right and what not. This works there. When we look at the reaction game, we could often disagree with what villain is doing. Let's say villain c-bets small on a certain board where we would bet big ourselves. Is it a mistake? Maybe. Is it not? We don't know, because we don't know his framework. If it's for us the reaction game, villain is setting the framework, and if he does it in a different way, maybe it's just a simplification. I wouldn't say it's clearly wrong. But if he makes a bluff catch with a hand that is just not beating some of our bluffs, for example, that could be still super wrong. So it's really that there is, given the framework around it, there's multiple answers that could be right. And in the perfect world, we would put in 100 different sizings in the solver, and then there's only one correct answer. But we are not there yet, right? We cut it down to 1, 2, 3 options. And it depends what the right answer is on those options that we are giving. Yeah, so I want to make that clear difference. Our action game, super easy to spot villain's mistakes. His action game, well, we need to find out his wardrobe, his framework. What does he do? And there it's a little tougher to really go over that threshold to say, okay, that is right or that is incorrect. Okay, where should my time be spent when trying to find out what is right? Is it all solvers? Is it changing the solver's input to have different correct outputs, looking at other good players, winning players? As I said already, there's pretty much more than one correct. And your job is to choose the one that you prefer the most. This is so important, because it's like, okay, we can discuss about something like, oh, now I'm getting in the wardrobe topic right away. We can discuss whether we want to use a small bet only or a small and a big bet. But then the turn and river game tree will deviate. So actually both of them can be correct. One is just a simpler version. And it's your choice to make, wait, do you think you have more EV, your skill compared to villain's skill? How much did you check out this game tree? So choose one and then know it, because once you know it, it is your action game. You can see again what is right and wrong, looking at villains' reactions. Another thing is really to get that input from good players, from winning players. And if you're watching, shout out to him, Jared Mann's Zoom 500 videos on YouTube, I think they are awesome. Or you are sometimes watching the Wacko, I don't know, René's show from Poker Ambition on Twitch. He's actually like, I had a Skype call with him, and it was so mind-blowing how close our thoughts about poker are in general. He's more, it's called the Wacko show, right? He's giving a show. He's choosing fancy lines. He's trying to build a very complex wardrobe often. I don't know whether he does, he was never a grinder, so I don't know too much about his standard game, if it even exists, right? But he is digging deep there and trying to, put villain into trouble. Still, well, maybe using less simplifications, but correct, definitely, right? Definitely making mistakes too, right? As I am making mistakes and every other good player is making mistakes. But this is how I want you to see it. There are multiple options that are correct. You can choose one. Really, our goal is way more to not totally mess up, right? That is something, well, checking back bottom set in position as the aggressor is just a 0% thing in every strategy. Right? If it's not a simplification, then a board is 0% that you go for the check only in position. But then actually you should only do that when it's villain's action game. And now it's the doorbell ringing again. Whoever that is, I'm not expecting anything. And if it's Amazon, they should come back tomorrow. So I'll stick with you guys and drink my last sip of coffee. So I was talking about multiple options that could be correct. So it is just having an idea of that is important. And then simplify it to your version. Okay, I hope that clears the question a little. I mean, Tom is not here right now, so he won't be able to answer later. And if there are any more, feel free to use the chat. Let's go. I have one eye on there. And if not, I'll just keep going. And the next step is his question about the second question. What is villain doing wrong? Could you maybe give a walkthrough example of how to determine villain is doing something wrong? Maybe they are doing something wrong by my ranges or strategy, but correct under another strategy. You see, again, we get to something, my strategy, his strategy, whatever, right? It's about the framework. Sometimes people are just like doing bullshit, right? If I see an ace-6 off open race from early position, that is just wrong. So easy to find out. Sometimes it's like in between. It can be okay in a certain strategy. Maybe it's wrong in another. And we need to understand that there's like lots of room, right? It's not like right or wrong, but there's like lots of stuff in between, where sometimes we can say something is clearly wrong. Sometimes we can only say it's likely to be wrong. And maybe other times we just don't know, depends on his strategy. So again, focus on your action game. You are setting the parameters. Things can change when villain takes over initiative and check raises. Well, then it's his parameters again. But first of all, if it's like, well, mainly he's calling or folding that decision, we can see whether that is right or wrong, right? We can just put in our parameters and have an idea, right? We can have an idea of like which sizing might be better or worse. And then it's not necessarily wrong, but maybe he's playing differently than we would in his shoes. That's like often a good idea to think about. Okay, and yeah, I'll put in the what is the right exploit in that as well, because I'll give you an example review of a couple of hands. And that leads to, right, that thing of right, wrong, and lots of room in between leaves us room for like how far to exploit. If I know someone is clearly doing something wrong, let's say he's never folding a river, like extreme example, even with ear, he's calling because he loves seeing the showdown. Well, I'm just value betting if I, well, yeah, have the equity against his full range. Okay, I'm never bluffing, obviously. That would be kind of easy and the massive exploit. Maybe next villain is just calling when he has a mate hand, which means in certain spots he's still folding 20, 30, 40% maybe even. So maybe we exploit that in a little different way, that we go, let's say, super big when we have it, but we can still bluff with small sizings to fold out his weaker draws. So whatever, and then there are lots of reads in between. Okay, so let's go to that example review. Actually, I opened up, where is it? I played one session or a couple of sessions yesterday. Let's have a look. So I hope that is big enough for you guys. I cannot make it bigger somehow. So I marked a couple of hands. You see, I played like 1,800 hands yesterday, made some money. So that is all good. Don't worry about that. And I just marked random hands. Okay. And now I want to take you through it with a focus on what would be right, what is villain doing wrong, and what is the right exploit. Okay, I open raise. Perfect. In my strategy, action game, I'm open raising. He calls. Perfect, right? No mistakes so far. I have multiple options, but I go with a high c-bet frequency and small sizing. I use the 25% sizing only. Action game, my game. He decides now to take over initiative and check raises. This should be like a 60% sizing. I'm always counting in percentages, not like 4x, 5x. Totally fine, right? Diamonds, backdoor straight draw. Why not? Having more 7x. He chooses this sizing. I go with a smaller one. Right? I would have went with half pot, which means I'm check raising to 2470, which I prefer that because it gives more trouble to cutoffs weaker hands, but that's not a difference, right? That's like now, this is my correct, and I don't know whether it's correct. It's a simplification to just one size, and he's taking this one or this one. I don't know. I guess I choose the 50% because I like it more than the bigger size. So I make mine closer to the right and his a little more, maybe a little wrong. I don't know, but there is no right or wrong. Okay, now I call. Turn is an ace. So that is a great card for in position, improving to aces. Well, that's it pretty much. And some other stuff. But mainly, it doesn't connect at all with big blind's check raising range, right? He could have something like 9-10, 8-6 of hearts and have like something like that. An 8 or a 9 would be a worse card, adding equity to villain's check raising hands. And now, I in his shoes would be on overbet or check. I have a 7 or I'm full of shit. I have nothing in between. I'm not like, I don't want to value bet my ace in his shoes here. It doesn't make any sense. So, and this is now where we see like, is that a mistake or a potential mistake? We see the scroll again that I like to have a look at. This is not a preset sizing of like 63% or something. So, is he maybe just looking at a flush draw and wants to see the next card without risking too much? I don't know, right? I think this just doesn't give me as much trouble as it should, because he's either playing only that sizing and then misses value with his 7x, or he has a clear sizing tail here and maybe goes big with the 7 and wants to, I call that buying cards for cheap. Yeah, so, that is now the first step where I say, okay, he's potentially doing something wrong, and I could make a note now, or should actually, but I won't do that now, on like, okay, potentially just like sizes his hand strength draw thing on boards where he should overbet. Okay, so call, river, nothing gets there. He decides to give up his flush draw, which is totally fine. I easily win with my king high. So a pretty standard hand, it seems like. But on the turn, I have good chances to figure out stuff. And this is the, like, thinking about what would I do? What is villain doing differently? why do I do what I'm doing? And why do I prefer that? The other time I might find out something and see like, hey, this is cool, I would never do that, and double check it with a solver. That would be something now, if you're not as sure as I am in that spot, double check it, right? Put that one in there, give it multiple turn options and see which sizing is preferred. And then you have an answer pretty much, right? Which framework is better? Okay. Nice, easy, king high. Next one. I open raise a little looser because of a weak table and big blind defense. So far, so good. Pocket tens versus MP, not often a 3-bet. And I see bet. He calls. I go again with a high frequency, small bet. Actually, I'm overdoing it here. This is not a 100% c-bet board, but you know why I'm talking about that? It's action game. I want to know my strategy. And this tells me I know which hands I have. Probably against that villain, I have all hands, and I'm betting full range. Makes it quite easy. He calls. Turn is a 3. Okay. Maybe you have watched my community coaching regarding turn betting, big and polar. This is a perfect example. Villain doesn't improve a shit. Maybe 2 combinations of 4-3 suited, maybe some pocket 3s. That's really not much. So I'm looking for a value threshold now where I start overbetting. I know that is my only sizing. I am not sure whether I go with king jack plus or king queen plus, and obviously all kinds of air. But king 6 is for me a 2-street value hand. I got my first street. I want to have one more. Don't really need to deny equity. There's only one overcard. And cool, I check it back and decide on the river. Now, this is very interesting. He rivers his freaking set. What would you guys do? Now, this is a question for you. What do you guys do in his shoes with your pocket tens here? I give you 20 seconds. Okay, we get the first check raise from Silas. Check from Geduld, bitte. Okay, check, 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 check. Bet large from Severino, all right. Bet big. Overbet from Hannes. Yeah, sure, be fancy. Check raise. Okay, let me ask you another question. What do you do with your ace of spades, 10 of clubs? Block betting, block betting, block betting. Bet myself, I think is probably better against bluffs and 2-3 round. 10x strong enough for block bet probably. Small bet, also overbet. Okay. So, why am I asking you for the ace of spades, 10 of clubs? It's pretty much the same hand regarding blockers, right? I could ask you for the ace of spades, 10 of diamonds, for example, as well. Or the ace of diamonds, 10 of diamonds, which should be all, right? I hear the lookalike principle for the first time. I didn't make a video out of that so far. That will follow soon. I'm pretty sure of that, but I'm mentioning that all the time when looking at the hand histories. Not saying that we necessarily have to play those hands the same way. It just makes sense. We can obviously take our ace 10 as a check call as well. Then it makes totally sense to check raise our 10s large. Now, let's dig on Hannes, right? So we have our community manager in here, right? So Hannes, you wanted to overbet your pocket 10s. What are you trying to achieve? What do you want to get called by? Oh, he doesn't like that. I think he left now. Maybe someone else helps him. Okay, I think I have a lot of air as well, so I want to be polar. Okay. Geduld bitte gives the answer. Exactly your weak king X. So first of all, what Hannes writes is totally right. Right away, he has 5-6, 6-7, busted flush draws, 5-7 suited. So there's lots of reason for in position to be bluff catching. And this is the reason why I, as the big blind, would always overbet my king queen and my king jack and my king 9, for example. But pocket 10s just have way, way, way more value. So the worst outcome is to bet big and get called by a king, actually, because you didn't give yourself the chance to win more. So with 10s, I'm looking at like, hey, how do I get the most value out of that? And a king bets itself, right? So I don't need to overbet, and then a king has an easy call and does everything right. Obviously, I can get a little more value out of a 4 that might be catching. But versus MP, there's not too much. So actually, I like the block bet, which forces a king to raise and then re-raise over the top, or I check, get a king to bet, and then I re-raise over the top, right? So when I'm thinking, okay, I want to attack a king, Then I think about what is a king doing, and just betting and getting a king to call is definitely not my goal. If he checks here, I'm betting 3/4 pot. He can check raise 150% pot, go crazy. Right. So yeah. Now the blocking is something you would see a lot in the solvers, but it's dangerous on low stakes because I would have raised my king here, but 95% of the players would just call, and that would be the worst outcome actually if you block bet your tens and then a king only calls. So he did this here, a random half pot sizing where I thought about, okay, I'm raising a block. I'm not sure what to think of that random half pot from someone who plays 28-8 over 40 hands. So I was more like, he's probably not the guy who value bets his 10x thin enough. He might just have king 9. So I decided against the raise and just called. And just seeing that, coming back to the topic, is like, what did he do wrong? Yeah, first of all, I know now that his half pot is strong. He got the minimum value out of those hand categories. And I can probably be sure that if he really like blocks something, he always has the hand he represents. Okay, that was another example. I have one or two more. Let's have a look that are even easier. I think this is the easiest one here. Let's take a look at that one. Now coming back again, what was our goal to find out? It's super fun to watch lots of hand histories. I know that, and I lose track of everything that was planned. I could make a whole session review with you guys, maybe at some point. But this year, we were at what is right, what is villain doing wrong, and what is the right exploit, right? So what is right? We had the question, how do we find that out? Often multiple things are right, and that is totally true. And what is villain doing wrong? We need to, right? I want to have that comparison between what would I be doing, what is villain doing differently, and why is my strategy better? I want to always know why that is better. If not, I should play the same that villain does. So this is a pretty easy one, right? We got Cloudy 1759, and him or her is flatting the small blind with queens. And then check calling against a small bet here. Okay, that seems reasonable. Check raising should be fine as well. Check, check, and now I actually think about folding facing that small bet from that type of player. So yeah, why is he calling? So this is definitely a very, very, I mean, I'm just calling here. Like, I don't see the bluff, small blind flatting range, super, whatever. This can be, I don't know that guy, 25-13. So I raise my ace, any ace, but that's it. And yeah, cool. But flatting queens is the perfect example for, this is definitely incorrect to put queens in your flatting range here, right? This is something that's like, maybe we can find a strategy where queens make a 5% call, but this is very far away from like what is right, and this is something we know nowadays. Okay, maybe one more. Oh, very interesting one, because I'm going berserk in this one. I can't wait for that. So I'm open raising ace-6 suited, middle position flats. So I'm playing 3-bet only in that spot, right? It's still 4 people behind. It's not really a thing in cash games. He can play a total of like, let's say 7-8% here. If he wants to split it, good luck, right? Then he's not playing ranges anymore. He's just playing a couple of combinations. What do you guys now, let's make it a question out of that again. What do you think his flatting range is here? We have 1,000 hands. He is a regular, 24-19, 10% 3-bet. And actually there's no reason to flat. Like, there's a good player in the big blind. There's no extra reason on the table to start flatting wider here. Give me a real range, not like I see first pocket pair that is obviously in there, really write down, because I said he's a good player. He knows that he can only play 7 or 8% here. And if he breaks that down into 3-bet and call, well, there's really just a few combinations left. Really write down the combinations. So we got Geduld bitte with Queen 10 suited, Jack 10 suited, aces. Everyone is always scared of the trap. Let's forget that. No one is trapping aces there. Sila, 6s through to 10s, Queen, Jack, and King, Queen suited. All right. Gustavo, deuces to 10s, not if he's playing 24 and 19. Like, no way he's flatting something worse than 7s, I would say, for example. Fröbel, I like this one a lot. 7s through to 9s, Jack, 10, King, Jack, right? Maybe the 7 through to 10s, 8s through to 10s, but really we are getting down to those combinations, just a few. Severino as well, 5s through to 8s and Jack 10 suited. If he's playing that loose, his stats would look differently. 24-19 is tighter than my stats, and I'm playing a 7.5% 3-bet only strategy here. He is overall tighter than that, but he's splitting. So my assumption was something like ace jack suited, 8s, 9s, 10s, king queen suited, something like that. Maybe it's a misclick, yes, but then that's the case. So what happens? He calls. I'm saying he has never 5s. He has never ace jack off. He's maybe low frequency king jack and queen jack suited. He freaking all the time has 8s, 9s, and 10s. Like, that's pretty much my opinion here. And I'm ready to, like, this is now a very strong exploit because, well, I'm very, very sure that his range looks the way it is. Right? So Severino knows what's going to happen. Right? Tell us, let us know. Severino knows what's happening. Overbet, the triple. Bang, bang, bang. No, why? We're playing versus 10s, 9s, and 8s. So obviously I'm checking here. But right, so it's like, and because he steps those hands. And I mean, this is totally out of this world. So this is a really, really strong exploit. And this is just because my read is that strong. I know lots. I mean, I haven't played that guy for ages, but I have played millions of hands versus players who play 24-19 and know what they flat from MP. So we got the check raise here, obviously. Actually, I don't size up too much here because I like him to call his 10s and 9s once or twice. Like, I know he won't call that down for stacks, no way. One thing is like that, I wouldn't do that with random bullshit, but the ace of spades is kind of a key card here. If I say ace jack suited, could be one of his only jacks he's ever having. All right, 7. And actually, I don't think he bet called 7s just because it's his weakest pocket that he could have if he's not folding that pre-flop. So I prefer to see a 4 or a 3, but a 7, I don't care. What else could he have? Flush draws, right? So I keep going. And actually, the river card is one that I love to see. It takes queen jack suited out of the equation as well. One more, right? Queen jack of diamonds not out there anymore. So, and well, actually, even his freaking king jack is a pure catcher by now. And well, I'm just ripping it in there. He has like king queen of clubs, ace queen of clubs, or he has 10s and 9s, and that's just it, right? So I guess I would say like 70% plus fold equity here. And this is just an example where, well, obviously no one is doing bullshit like that. So it's fine to flat that kind of hand strength because no one is doing anything about it. Another thing I would be doing would be flop is 10-9-8. I check fold aces. It's really that I know his freaking hand. I don't have to think I have an overpair, whatever, right? So clear reads can come to clear exploits, right? And this is the whole process. What would be right? My opinion is you shouldn't be flatting here. And if you should still need to mix ranges, but this is not what's happening. What is Willem doing wrong? He doesn't play a range. He plays a few combinations. What is the right exploit? When his few combos do not hit a shit, I go massively crazy. If the river was a 9 or a 10, I block bet to fold out his flush draws. Just for the loads. Yeah, that's it. And if the river is a 10, I don't see the 9 pocket 9s catches. I think I always get away with the block bet. I need 25%, 20% fold equity and should have more than that. Okay, maybe one last one. Very interesting because it's the same player. Pocket 6s. And that's a low frequency 3-bet. And he has shown that he is 3-betting from MP. Now he's flat. Like, I mean, he's 3-betting a low frequency 3-bet that he should flat most of the time. If he's playing a flatting range, just important to note. Now that would be really, again, where it's very close. I cannot say that this is wrong or right. No clue. I see that he checks that back. I think he can bet his full range if he wants on that board. 6s can obviously check back, not having a diamond even totally fine. And I just go for small and big on that run out. On the turn, I have multiple options. But again, that would be one example where I cannot learn too much from his whatever, from his play. Okay, so that was it. The little example review. I hope you enjoyed that. And I drank a little something here. And yeah, don't go crazy with your ace 6 suited, right? So on lower stakes, maybe those freaking, you need the read first, right? Not me saying, well, they only have 9s and 10s when they are there. Gustavo is probably totally right with his range if he writes down pocket deuces to pocket 10s, right? If a player, let's say from Asia on GG Poker, flats there on NL10, right? Then don't go crazy. We need the read first, and then we can go and exploit to the maximum. Okay, let's see what is next. So even going a little deeper into that, what is the right exploit? I showed you again, or I want to show you again something that I used in my community coaching about reviewing hands already. And I called it the pyramid of reads. So it's really, it should show step by step how much a read can be worth. There was a question in Slack in the community coaching thread about, it's super tough for me to have those reads and how to evaluate it. And I don't know how far to go. And this is where I cannot give you an answer, because this is the beautiful thing in poker. It's like, right, using rock, paper, scissors as an example again. I meet freaking Taylor on the streets. I know he's American, but nothing else about it. So, it's like a second step read. Let's say I have the nation read, kind of, right? I'd meet him on an American street. So I know he's probably taking rock too often. Might be totally off for him. Maybe he studies game theory and knows that everyone is taking rock too often. He sees me, thinks like I'm American or Northern European, and well, he is just taking paper, right? But population read will be more often true than not. So that would be my baseline here with Taylor. And for sure, I will take first round. If we play one round, I will take paper. That's it. Okay, let's say play versus pool. Hut stats. Let's take the rock, paper, scissors example again. What could that be? I'm watching Taylor now, meeting lots of people on the street and playing them. This is what the HUD is, the stats. I'm watching him play, not necessarily against me, but against all the other players. Maybe he is a super, super smart guy and is exploiting all them. And he takes paper all the time because he's exploiting. But then, well, he plays me and he knows, well, he has seen my community coaching and he knows I'm taking paper first. So while I see in his HUD that he's taking paper most often, that will be totally off, right? Because he will actually take scissors against me way more, because he's playing me differently than the whole pool, which I guess, again, is pretty unlikely. It's like, it is always a human thing to expect people to think the same way we are. It's like, maybe you have experienced that as well. Once you worked on one specific topic, let's say for me, that is, my example is always check raising from the big blind. I expect everyone else to have the same knowledge because it's so obvious after I worked through that, which is obviously totally off, right? 1 week before, I had no clue maybe. And this is the same thing, right? We are expecting someone to be like, people are scared of exploiting some population tendencies because this might be the one genius who is just the other way around. Well, that's totally fine, right? Because I'm beating the other 95% of suckers. And that is what makes my win rate. And this is the thing. So now we have watched Taylor play all the others. We have his HUD stats. And what is more likely? He's the smartest kid in the world and outplays us, or he is just having tendencies and they will be the same against us. But it's very, very important, right? To be aware of where those stats come from. I can give you a poker example as well. So I played Zoom 500. Maybe I've told that story a couple of times already, so maybe you know that. And now coming to the part of how far can we go with our exploit. The stronger our read is, the more we can exploit. Before that, I don't want to go too massively. I play Zoom 500, say 2014, 2015. I have 7 deuce off on the button. My strategy back then was like a 55% opening range with a min raise to play as many hands as possible and play in position all the time. So I have 7 deuce off and I see there's a super nit in the big blind. Now the question is, okay, I want to open raise wider. I cannot decrease my sizing even further, so that's a little sad, but I open raise wider. And let's say going from 55% to 100% seemed reasonable, right? Having auto profit against that guy. So yeah, why not? Actually, I like that play with 7 deuce off there. And now what happens is the small blind 3-bets me, a regular. So fuck, right? What is my answer to that? Now actually, well, I look in my stats, and I had lots of stats on him because I was going for SNE and he was probably doing the same. I don't remember his name, but so we had infinite hands on each other. And actually he had a fold to 4-bet of 64.2% random number, right? But it was too high. And well, my thought process was easy, auto profit if I 4-bet now. Makes totally sense, right? Auto profit, 4-betting, So I went for it. I had my freaking 7 deuce off. I 4-bet. He calls, but I made my EV, right? He's overfolding. So flop now was ace 8-3. Obviously ace high board, awesome for me. I c-bet because I c-bet my full range on that, if I have it really range. Turn was a 5. I pick up a gut shot. What else could I do than just double barrel and attack his pocket jacks? Obvious choice, right? I'm still sitting there with 7 deuce off and pretty much 100% of my range that didn't want to flat pre-flop. And yeah, he calls. River, it bricks off, let's say a 9. And I'm sitting there with nut low. And if you want to bluff something, nut low should be your first hand, correct? So yeah, I ended up blasting my stacks into his slow play pocket aces with 7 deuce off, where right, I could tell you the story. I mean, I gave you the comment already that this is obviously bullshit what I did, but I could present you the story in another way to at least convince, I guess, 50% of you that that was a perfectly smart and fine play. Where now we want to take a look deeper, because the problem that I had there is actually this here. I had only this read. I only had his HUD, his stats. That's a collection of how he plays versus mainly other players. And maybe he's 3-betting lighter against them and then folding to 4-bets because they are value heavy. But, well, we know each other. He sees me every day in the pool. And it's like, why should he play the same way against me? Maybe he's just playing a little tighter against me and then tries to not overfold. So what I did was going from 55% open raise to 100%. I still think that is totally fine. And then I went from, let's say, 15% 4-bet frequency because of a tiny read to 85% 4-bet frequency, just all the hands I'm not calling. I think that was the massive blow up. And then post flop being there with like an 85% range and still playing the same way as if I had like top 5% or anything. So yeah, that was a hand that actually took place and is my example for, well, the problem of having that kind of read, right? If it's just a small read, so I can adjust a little, right? My perfect reasoning would be, okay, I had my exploit with 7 deuce off. This guy's actually overfolding to 4-bets probably. So instead of just taking my king, queen, ace jack off, like whatever, 30% of the time, let's up that number to 40% and be a little lighter. That would be totally fine and totally enough here. And now coming to next step, play versus hero-like player. This is different, right? It's, let's go back to rock, paper, scissors. We are again on the streets with Taylor, but today we are not alone. Actually, we send one of our friends ahead. Like we are just watching the whole show from the back. So we sent a good friend who looks a little like us to play Taylor, rock, paper, scissors. And now we are watching how he plays Taylor. And well, Taylor doesn't know that we are watching. I think that's pretty important. And then next day we meet Taylor and we play him. So that read that we are having, that our friend or brother or whatever told us, is obviously worth way, way, way more, because it shows, well, pretty much how Taylor perceives us as well. It's pretty much for Taylor, it's playing the same guy, so he takes probably the same strategy. And yeah, so we have a way stronger read. Maybe you have an idea where something like that might have happened in my personal past. And yeah, I'll just tell you another story here. Lots of storytelling today, but I like it. It was 2016, the first time I was playing High Rollers live. I was in Aria signing up for a 25K. And it was, well, no one knew me. I played with all the guys online, so I'd reads from there. And I had hero-like players, right? I was a random friend of Fedor, random German. But there were lots of random Germans playing those. So I had, for example, the information that first black or white spot, like something where it's just like I have it or I don't have it, it's very, very likely that Justin Bonomo will bluff catch. because this is what he does against all new players, or did back then. What else? Back then, another read was I knew that without playing a single hand live with him before, that Igor Kurganov was like pretty face up on the turn and was insanely overfolding to delayed bets, which is great against the pool because everyone is too value heavy there. I tried to structure my range in a way that I'm bluff heavy there. What else? I knew that, well, this will always be true. Shout out to him, that I can call the first spot against Ike or any spot because he will have his bluffs. No worries about that. He will find some. So that's totally cool. If I feel like calling and my hand has some good blockers or anything, I don't need to exploit by overfolding or anything. So I had that strong of a read playing my first 25K because I had 5 or 10 friends already telling me those. And I could expect that all the villains are playing me pretty much the same way because I'm a random other unknown friend of Fedor. And yeah, then obviously we get to the peak of the pyramid where like play versus hero. This is like the actual thing where villain shows you his strategy. This is what we just did before. Going through the review, hands that went to showdown. Villains are showing you what they play when they play you. So those mistakes are really what they are trying their best against you. If this guy with 10-6 of diamonds is always playing his flush draws like that, I will find out, right? It's not like something that he will play differently next time, probably. And the guy flatting queens versus me, well, he does it against me, not against some super whatever kind of thing. So this is the strongest thing, and this is where we should start. And obviously, this is still not an answer to the question coming back that was asked, because I cannot tell you how far you should go. I can only tell you the stronger your reads are, the more crazy you can go, right? Definitely no 7 deuce off 4 bets with this here. Right? If he folds 90% over a sample versus me personally, I can go with the 7 deuce off. That's totally fine. Right? Just my impression. And it shows you at the same time what you should watch out for, right? To categorize that a little, right? Having maybe a label, like all this top 2 is what I write down in the notes, just like manually writing it down. Everything else is like, this can be a label. Let's say I see the first limp, I tag him as like the might be fish, whatever. Right? Stack size read, I see someone with 73 big blinds, and then he limps, I'll double confirm probably fish. Right? Yeah. Nation read could be something, right? Pretty much close to, I've seen someone limping, or I see someone that he is from Lebanon. They are call happy, right? That's just my experience. I don't know anything about the players from there, but my experience is that they do not like folding, right? Same thing, Scandinavians are aggressive. There is something about that. And yeah, freaking Germans are usually freaking nits. So here we go. Okay, let's keep going. The next question, I guess that was the one from Severino, the holistic approach of studying poker. And again, we'll end up in me telling stories. So you have the problem of just reviewing hands, maybe. So I want to give you the first idea or just approach to that is reviewing hands is a starting point to dive deeper. This is your, right? Now what I did before, I gave you the example, 10-6 of diamonds hand. I can take that to then look, okay, how should a turn check raise strategy look like? But my problem is then the next hand will be about, I don't know, 3-bet pot out of position. How does my flop check raise look like? And that. And I want to tell you a story to that as well. I don't know whether it was in one of the videos or somewhere else, but a little analogy is, how do all the sportsmen, right? Like, how do they, let's go with football, right? How do those guys train? It's like, of course, they review matches. I'm sure Germany did review the Germany versus Portugal match, even though they won, right? They have like 3-4 different spots, right? Where maybe it's Yogi Löw or anyone else like telling the players, hey, they are in the defense. That was a little bit of a struggle. I'm sure they reviewed the disaster with the goal versus France, like where the throw in led to like some disorder and that was like messing things up. And then the next thing they go like, okay, here in the offense, this is how you need to behave in a different way. This is nothing else but us reviewing a session. This is exactly the same. We take something from there, we take something from there, we take something from there. But this is our starting point. And now it's our turn to, like, we have seen that and we take it into practice. We're like, hey, maybe the focus of your next session should be how to defend those throw-ins against movement a little better, right? And make some games around that to just like get that instead of, right? It's like this. Or imagine a child going to training and the trainer is like, I'll show you around. We'll get better at everything, right? It's like, let's first do shooting, right? Without a warm-up. We like that the most. So shooting, you'll take your right foot, the inner side of it, and you swing your leg in that way, and then the ball flies perfectly that way. Try it. All right. Kid tries once. And then it's like hand histories. I hope you get the point, right? Let's move on to the next one. Right? Now we had like checking out one sim in a check race game tree. And now let's move on to the next one. Trainer takes the child. Hey, what about passing? I think your left foot is weak. I'm not sure about that one. So you should take your left foot, put your right one next to the ball, and then take the inner side of the foot to play a very easy pass. All right, take that wall there, little kid. All right, let's call him Taylor as well. I like Taylor. So let's do that 2 times. Right? Let's do it 2 times even. You take the freaking ball, you kick it 2 times against the wall, and then let's play with opponents. Right? Now let's see like how to tackle someone correctly. And this is nothing else what we do with reviewing hands. It's, yeah, we are never really practicing. And this is what we need to implement. Right? This is the reviews. It gives us confidence when we do something good. It gives us topic that we need to work on. It is our chance to take notes, right? So maybe check out the community coaching regarding different ways of reviewing. We can learn so much out of that, but this is not the end. Only getting better with reviewing hands, you mess up your mind. But you are that little child kicking the ball against the wall twice and then going to shooting next and then doing something else. Well, what about headers, right? So this is just a very stupid way of studying. If you think like, I want to see poker as a sports in that way, how do we get better at all those different areas? Actually, let's get away from that PowerPoint here, and I'll just pull something up that I prepared, but it's not much. So let's have a look at that. We can make that one bigger. Oh, we have seen that before, right? What would be right? What is villain doing wrong? What is the right exploit? So many things we can work on. We can work on that stuff in different ways, right? Here, what can we do? Think about what could we do to dive deeper here. Divide and conquer, solve PIO spots. What about having a topic like playing a pass with the left foot or check raising the big blind when defending, and do that for 2 weeks straight, right? You take the review, but this is your focus in every study session. Well, guess what? It's like kicking the freaking ball 1,000 times against the wall. You will nail that. You will have that awesome feeling of you are better than everyone else in your games in that specific spot. Obviously, in others, you might still struggle, and this is step by step. You can do something like talk to other players, right? We have a great community. We have players here that play the same things, that make the same experiences, that have the same problems, right? So looking for your personal Fedor, your personal Reiner, your personal Ben CB that I worked with. It's like, I didn't come up with ICM strategies my own. I let Ben CB explain it to me, right? After he did the in-depth work. And then I helped him out with deep stack stuff, right? And like, I was there, I remember like how shy I was before my first live tournaments, like really sitting there very defensively and like, don't give any reads, talk to Fedor about it, and then like just gaining that confidence, talking to him like, do you feel anything? Like, do you have reads? Is that fine? Or should I behave a little differently to cover something? Like just that constant feedback, totally fine, right? One other thing that we do not use enough, clearly, just our brain, we can think about it. Right? It's like, does that make sense? It's a freaking strong tool. I remember when I started playing poker, I was going to university and I had to take a 1-hour train drive, one way, every day. Well, every day that I went to uni, actually. So not that many days. But it's still like that time I had a pen and paper and I thought about poker. So it's like, that can help. Like, what could make sense in that spot? Check out my videos, right? Think about it. Give yourself some homework. right? Build wardrobes, write down 10 freaking boards and build wardrobes for them. Perfect. And there's obviously many, many, many more. We can, well, watch all kind of videos. What would be right? We can watch Jared Man, or we can watch the Baco playing and get input. Perfect. What is Villain doing wrong? What can we do? Well, we can do a database analysis. Our database. We can talk to players playing the same game. Right? Why not reach out later on and say, hey guys, I'm playing NL 100 Russian Cash. Who else is playing that kind of game? What are, like, perfect. This is one of my biggest benefit, that I'm very, very close with pretty much anyone in the community, and I can just ask anyone and get good answers. So this is definitely part of it. Remember the story of my first 25K. I already had players that were playing the same games, and this gave me lots of reads. This year, for example, what is Villain doing wrong? What else could I do? I can have a note-taking system for sure, right? Just taking some time, think about what can help me actually in the future. What do I want to know, etc. Right? There's way, way, way more. But did you guys ever sit down like that and try to come up with a list what you could do? I guess most not, right? So what is the right exploit? Again, we can do some node locking. Max node locking, I made example for that. Just not allow check raising or not allow anything to understand incentives. That could be something. We can, well, use our brain even more. We can talk to other players, use their brains as well. We can, again, watch the Wacko play. Wacko, I'm not sure, Wacko. Watch the Wacko play and see what he does, or other great players. So very, 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 very good ways to learn. And all that is like, great. And this year is just something that I want to stick to, like a longer time frame than just in a little review. Just watching one hand and then taking a different topic, you mess it up for yourself. So first thing whenever you are reviewing is sorted by position at least. Right? Because then you have a couple of spots that are the same. Right? Button versus big blind, maybe 5 single raise pots in a row, and you give yourself a chance to understand patterns better. Hannes, how important is confidence at the table? Do you sometimes have days where you don't feel confident? How much does that impact your play? I think it does matter more the less you know about the game. Like, I'm pretty sure I won't mess up even if I'm sitting there not confident. Like, I'm just playing my game. And yeah, I was nervous and not confident a lot in big tournaments, even though there really wasn't any reason, and I think it impacted me heavily. Yeah, if it impacts you in a way that you cannot execute your strategy, yeah, if you know what is right, in most cases, then or at least for me, the feeling doesn't matter. I will still bluff and I will feel shit while doing that. My only thing is like, is there a 5% chance that he just sees I'm bluffing? And I'm pretty confident that that is not there. And yeah, could you explain what node locking is? That is something that you can do in a solver to just say, usually a solver is playing perfect versus perfect. And node locking means in one decision node, you're keeping like, you're just saying what Villain does, right? Or you set a framework. It's like, okay, no, he's not playing perfect. He's c-betting full range. And then the solver runs around that side and sees what is best against the range bet. Or I just change the framework from, hey, I node lock in a way to say I don't allow Villain at all to check raise, to see, well, how much more do I c-bet? Do I use another sizing more often, etc. This is pretty much you saying how the strategy looks like to find out what a perfect exploit is. Okay, could suggest specific drills for starting what would be right with our brain, like that you just mentioned of building wardrobes for 10 boards. Yeah, I don't know whether that is a question. That maybe more drills for that is just, I don't have specific drills, but every content video I'm having there, just practice, do home. I don't want to give you homework there because I don't have the time to review that later on, right? Actually, but this is something, hey, why not meet with someone? Or I like, check this out. And it's like someone did, I didn't have a look into it, but I've read the first message, who's working on ace low boards and something in depth and has like a file presented. Check that out. We have another great file there where someone is talking about population tendencies and does some analysis, right? Engage there, give your opinion, and maybe take that and learn for your side as well. So yeah, and specific drills, I was talking about that. There's nothing specific I'm having, but it always comes up when reviewing anyways. And what I need then is maybe one drill as well as every time, every hand you review that went to showdown, you can write down something. And I like writing down questions because questions are always call to action. They force you to do something because you want to find out. So yeah, just write down the list where you struggle, right? Or the question you're having there. Right? It's like one of that we reviewed, I make it big again, sorry, was villain check raising queen 7-7 with 10-6 diamonds, turn ace. What is the correct, or not correct, correct does not exist there. What is the best size here to follow up? Well, this is a job for you, right? Find it out. This is, well, villain betting 50% with 10-10 on king 8-3, 6, not 6, 5-10, something like that, on the river after out of position float. Which sizings to use here best and how to structure, right? Take that, right? Think about stuff like that. I just came up with that without really thinking about it, right? How I asked you those questions. You can ask those questions yourself. How do I play ace-10? Right? Lookalike principle, something like this can help you. How do I play my pocket tens? How do I play my king queen, my king jack? How would I play out of position my pocket nines? Good enough for a block bet or not? No clue. Right? These are questions, clear solvers. We are the boss. And a solver, or if we don't have that, right? Not every one of us is playing mid or high stakes where we need that. That's a heavy investment as well. So we can think about that. You can think about that as well and come up with your strategy the way I did. I didn't tell you what a solver does here. I told you here what I think about it. It's like, okay, if I bet big, I'm actually attacking a king actually, but a king bets itself. So why should I bet big? I can rather protect the rest of my range and then go for the check raise. Something like that. This is, I guess this is something we can come up with by, where is it? Using our brain. Right? And this here would be the solver part. The solver is like a stupid assistant. Always gives you an answer that is as complex as the question. So, right? So try to ask easy questions. I think this here is a clear question. I did not ask, hi, on that paired board, how to play that overall. It's like, and then giving a gazillion options. I won't learn from that, right? I could start with, what is my c-bet strategy, given I use one sizing? Against that, what is the better check raise strategy? I can offer two and see what is better, smaller or bigger, try to understand. Always the goal of understanding. Turn ace, okay, what is the best size here? What makes sense? I can think about that. I'm like, okay, the only things I'm really value betting are 7x, and they are trying to get directional in. So I should try to get directional in. It's like, I know it's supernatural to me now, but I hope you can see it that by thinking about it, we can actually get very, very close. Having a little assistant is great, but once we do not run the most serious business in the world, it's just we need to do everything ourselves, right? Just thinking about it while sitting in the train, thinking about it, well, any time, right? While, I don't know, while you have your mom on your phone. That's like my times when I think a lot about stuff. So let's leave it as that. Cool. What to study on your own. I hope I opened some doors there for you. Yeah, that answers the question a little. I could keep going over that for a long time, but that would be too much now. And just see what's next. I guess we didn't even talk about the wardrobes yet, so I'll try to speed up a little. All right, building your wardrobe. And yeah, I didn't put that in the video because building a wardrobe was one of the videos where I just was talking to the camera. This is usually the images that I'm using. And what you see on the left side is what I call a pile wardrobe. Maybe you remember my little story about wardrobes that I gave you in one of the videos, talking about Reiner living out of a suitcase, or just the idea of, well, someone asks you to do the laundry and then pretty much put all the stuff back in the right order again. Right? Let's say on the left side, this is your girlfriend's wardrobe, and she asks you to just like wash all the stuff and put it back there. We're like, it looks nice, right? It's like a Pio solution. It looks perfectly fine, but is there any way you can make that right? I don't even understand, right? It's like I look at it and try to understand it. Okay, shoes in there. Do I know whether it's important that the red shoes are here and the other are on the bottom? I understand, okay, dresses on the left side here somehow, but some other stuff there on the front. Is that important that these are red back there or not? Do I need to focus on that? What about those, well, the lamps, they probably stay, but this freaking hand decoration here on the side, is it important where it stands exactly? And this is obviously bullshitting around, but Pio is the same thing. All the mixing, if I offer 5 different sizings, I will never put it together. And I have no chance to understand what are actually the important points. But is it just important that shoes are in there? Or is it way more about the structure of them themselves, and they could be somewhere else as well? So super, super tough. Where on the right side, you see my little wardrobe from Vienna, which has 2 drawers and 1 big compartment. Okay, I always had this open suitcase for all kinds of stuff on the side. That is easy, but that actually has a very, very easy thing. Right? It's like, I think top drawer was just underwear, bottom drawer was sports stuff, and top was just everything that is left over. So what you see here is actually you see some like shorts in the top one, which is definitely wrong. But I think if I give you that structure, you will understand it. I don't even have to tell you. It's just so obvious that you will maybe put those sports shorts here as well. But you nail that wardrobe 95%, which can then help you poker-wise to play better later. If you didn't mess up so far, it's way easier to do something good next. Okay. So yeah, that's it. So I'm way more focused to that. And I guess next is a question regarding how to simplify and when to simplify. Let's see. So Andreas, I hope are you here, Andreas? Asks, what's the threshold for when you simplify your wardrobe? So for instance, if a solver checks 90%, then we can probably check range, but other spots might not be so clear cut. Again, I want to start with that by understanding the situation. I only want to simplify when it doesn't cost me EV, or when I know I can make up for that EV later on anyways, right? By making life easier for me and maybe tougher for villain, or one of those options. So yeah, let's have a look at those examples that I want to show you, Andreas. We want to understand where EV is coming from. If EV is not coming from a special line, I'm ready to kill that for reasons of simplification. If clear EV is coming from a line, I should definitely consider taking it, or at least know that I can make up for that in another scenario later. Okay, 2 examples. I didn't make it super nice. I just did that like 3 hours ago. So I'll just explain it a little to you. The left side is blind versus blind. Small blind first in, big blind defense. And I only offered a small size on Queen Jack 5 with a flush draw. So yeah, I can tell you I could put in a big size and it's sometimes taken, but actually not really important. The small size it is here often. And we see a 91% frequency. Now this nails the question pretty much. This is 10% check, 9% check. Should I try to do this? Or should I try to simplify and just bet range? And now what I do is really find out where is EV coming from. And I do that by looking at that, how you call that, card matrix here, and try to find out, is there a single hand that clearly wants to do one thing? And so I'm looking, is there anything that wants to do checking more than 50%? If not, that's all same EV. I don't care, right? Maybe I can get exploited by villain raising a little lighter, but that's small bullshit. So what I found, the lowest frequency c-bet is A7 off. So I clicked on that. You can see the individual combos here on the right side. And actually, it still says small bet is actually higher EV. Well, if I keep the solver running, that will be evened out in the end. That can mean on the one side that the frequency will still go up. On the other, we can just see it as like, it doesn't matter. So I have the very clear answer here. Fuck it, right? It's like the very clear answer. We don't need that bullshit checking line because it's not giving us additional EV. What is that checking around? Like, you could have guessed like pocket tens, but it's actually not, right? It's like, they are all fine betting, so why not doing it? I know exactly, my flop play is done. I don't need to think about that anymore. And I know exactly what my turn range is. It is my freaking full range, right? So that is pretty easy. And on the right side, now going one step further, the Ace King 4 board, I guess that was actually in one of the videos where I talked about we can play that board with a big bet and check what the solver suggests, or take other reasons to use the small bet. Let's just assume we decided, sorry, this is button versus big blind, Ace King 4. I'm a little too fast, I guess. Button versus big blind, Ace King 4, we open raise, big blind defense. And here I just said I use the small bet, even though I know the big bet makes lots of EV, right? This is just for example reasons now. And because I have the nice outcome that we bet like 82%, something like that, with that small sizing. And I do again the same thing to understand where is EV coming from. What is, if I want to use a check back, what are the important hands that clearly prefer doing that? So now again, screening the card matrix here, looking through for hands that want to do checking more often than 50%. What do we find? Pocket queens, quite obvious. Pocket jacks, okay. And queen 9 suited, probably some of the queen 9 off combos as well. That's it. And everything else is mixed around that. Pocket aces are indifferent in a way. Small aces are indifferent. The king X, checking fine, betting fine, whatever, right? The one that clearly prefers the check is queen 9 of spades, queen 9 of hearts, right? You even see like a 6-cent EV difference in a $28 pot. So yeah, now the question is, this is something for us to decide. Are we giving that up, that EV, to play a more simple strategy or not? And that's totally fine, right? Both answers are totally correct. I want you to understand, right? Like, okay, why is queen 9 the worst hand? Obviously, well, it gets called by all queen jack and all queen 10. We fold out all queen 8, all jack 9, all 10 9. That does not really make sense in the first place. But just betting that board is totally fine. So if villains are not check raising enough of their 3-5 suited, that hand will perform quite nicely, actually. So, right, it's like, this is something I can see range betting that board as well. Totally fine in my eyes. But I want to understand first, where is it important? Where does EV come from? Etc. I hope that, I mean, it's again, there's no perfect answer to that question, but it should help a little. Okay, hey Mukesh, great that you made it right here. I've seen you joining today, so shout out to Mumbai. The question is, how many subsets of flops will be ideal to study the specific spots? Button versus big blind, single raise pot. Again, here, there is no answer. This sounds to me like some kind of learning by heart strategy, right? I know 20 boards here, 20 boards there, 20 boards there in those spots. And that means I pretty much know everything. But I want to use looking at those boards to understand the concepts behind it, right? So one board like that, this board here for me is good enough to say, hey, this is for all boards where I have top 2 pair and villain does not have those in the top sets. Ace queen 4, ace queen 6, ace queen deuce will be the same. Button versus big blind. Middle position, ace king 3 will be the same. Then, well, maybe I'll look a little at boards, let's say paired boards, for example. What about 10-10x from under the gun? Well, that's great because I have lots of offsuit 10s still. 9-9x from under the gun would be a totally different thing, right? So I want to understand those patterns. So there's no answer, learn those 20 boards for every spot. It's like, how is the spot different? What is interesting for those ranges? And have some examples, right? Just probably starting with 5 different ones first is pretty cool already. Yes. Canopy, your question is just the very clear yes. When working with the solver, would you suggest for the people that aren't really doing the solver work yet, trying to understand the reasons with only a few sizings to begin with? Yes. Small. I said before, a solver is your assistant. It gives you answers that are as complex as your question. So if you ask easy questions, you get easy answers. That makes it way easier to learn from. But if you, let's say we make 2 simulations and one is with a small size, one is with a big size. And we see, hey, the big size is way cooler. This is what we wanted to find out. Perfect, right? Or we do something, whatever, like just, yeah, I don't know. I could give millions of examples now, but this is just it. The easier your question, the easier the answer the solver gives you, and that can help you understand stuff better. Okay, yeah, that's it regarding the building the wardrobe. That was a little easy here now because it was just one question regarding that. But I guess most of you just got the idea, right? We don't want to look at the hand and then decide what we do before we want to cut down our options to make our life easy. If I know already that I'm just range betting, I don't need to look at my hand anymore. And this prevents us from one of the biggest leaks out there, which is sizing or action triggered by hand. Right? People look at their hand and then they do what their hands like to do, which is just like often just like not fitting in the range. It's just, yeah, they bet big on, I don't know, a board where they should never bet big, and they do it because they just have it right now. Something like that. What would make the range on the left a pure strat? Is there a range versus range equity threshold where Pio starts using a mixed strat versus a pure strat? This is very freaking terms. What is a pure strat for you? Is a pure strat just a range bet, if you mean that? There's not an equity threshold. Yeah, I guess this year actually goes up a little more if I keep the solver running, because we see that right now ace-7 off has still higher EV in betting. What the solver does is then he doesn't know anything about hands and boards. He just sees, oh, betting is better. That means the next round the solver runs it through, he will just increase the frequency there and see how everything adjusts, how the EVs change, to then until there is some kind of equilibrium. So if I keep that running, I guess we get to 93, 94, 95, maybe even higher percent, given that outcome I see here right now. And there is no equity threshold because it's a whole combination of things. It's something like the pure raw equity is definitely a part, but I can give you an example, a toy game where the guy with 66% equity will bet 0%, because it's way more about nut equity as well. Who has the best hands? The deeper we are, it's more about that. Nut equity right now and nut equity over time. So here we have something that we pretty much look in the future. We have an advantage right now. The advantage will stay over time. It might even get bigger. Let's say there's a 10 on the turn, right? It's just the small blind who has ace king. Maybe it's a king. Both players have ace 10, but the small blind has kings as well, and all that king queen more often. Ace king will add more of that stuff. Turn is a deuce, right? So maybe after calling, the big blind will not have two pairs in sets anymore. So the deuce is a full brick, which increases the value of like the future game of the small blind. That's a big mix, so we cannot break that down to something super simple. Okay, let me continue with the Ask Me Anything to just get through those questions because it's already 90 minutes over. I just make it a little quicker, and feel free, go in the Slack afterwards, discuss, right? First with your classmates. I will have a look over it the next days and I will give my input. It's not, we make sure to work together on that. Obviously, I will give not always, but I will often give my input as well. But it's not meant as like, okay, we use that and this is your tool to reach out to me. And we have like 50 private coachings at the same time. So it's really, you can discuss, right? And I want to give you the framework, what makes sense and which way to work. And then hopefully 1 year from now, we have seen some crushers here in the crew. So yeah, let's just quickly go through that here. Geduld bitte, your question. So for every non-German, that means patience, please, that name. So I like it a lot. We're only digging deeper into your, you were only digging deeper into your red line problem when you asked me the first long questions that did not really fit for this session here. And you came up with lots of spots where we are in position, single raise pot, and the action goes bet, check, check. And improving some of those spots rather to bet, check, bet more would be cool, I guess. But since villains out of position are probably not block betting thinly enough, so we see, right, it's like something what would be right. You put in some population tendency. They are not block betting thinly enough for value. The EV of your river bet decreases. Is that correct? Right? I won't make a quiz out of that now to save time, but the clear answer is no. The EV of your river bluff decreases, right? But you can bet thinner for value. They are missing out on value. That means they are sitting on way more third pairs, second pairs they should. So what can you do to attack a range like that? You can bet bigger for value and you can bet thinner for value. It's not necessary. If people are not folding, forget about the bluffs. The exploit is to go thinner for value and bigger for value. This can increase your red line as well, right? Every hand that you do not check back, and you bet, well, if villain calls, you have a better blue line. Even if he folds, well, you win the same amount, but it goes into the red line. So this is maybe something where maybe the king 6 example before for you was good, just like to make sure to not forget that against the block bet we raise, if, well, maybe if he checks and they have that hand category more often, it would be cool to not go with 75%, but just size up to pot, saying they always have that one hand category. So yeah, I would always focus. I mean, I don't want to say I don't want to have bluffs in those spots because it's often wrong, right? A bluff to be winning there, given the size, usually needs only like 30 to 50% fold equity. It does not have to work all the time. So it's great to know like some snap folds that are there, right? And we can focus on them, unblocking them, and then we know, right, if we need 30% fold equity and we know the first 20 are his snap folds, how bad can it be? So this would be it. Let me just get to the next one. I think this is what I answered with a pyramid of reads a little already. Flip side 300, I'm really struggling with labeling villains quickly, how to identify, label people over aggressive, tight aggressive, rack fish. I constantly hear people say the player in the one seat is this and this. Totally right. I hate that, how much people say that, because they often just have no clue. Try to collect those clear reads and be aware of what your read is, right? And then make assumptions there. How do we gather this information without HUDs? So there was a long thread I made in the cash game content one or in a hand analysis, I don't remember, about like what to start a HUD with. And actually this answers the same thing here, even without a HUD. We focus on showdowns, things we see. Do we see him open raising king 6 off from the button? We know he is to lose. Boom, that's it, right? We can write it down. That player will probably be to lose from middle position as well. Yeah, this is the one thing, right? Just like the very easy things that we can see. Opening ranges, 3-bet ranges. Someone 3-betting pocket 6s button versus cutoff is probably a little light. We've seen the example where someone is flatting middle position versus early position. And if I see something like 5s there, well, I know something. That is, but if I see 9s, okay, I probably nail it, right? That he has what I'm expecting. And on the other side, having some kind of image that is created even without showdowns. That's very, very variance heavy short term, but it's like, is this guy giving you trouble a lot? It's like, is he raising small block bets ever? Some people are not. Is he just like passive and then folding or what? This is just an impression that you get while observing the table. Often it's even great. I like the GG replayer a lot to watch how they play versus other players. Every showdown is freaking valuable. So focus on those. Yeah, I can't adjust my range if I can't identify easily a villain's playing style. 100%, right? We need to spot villains' mistakes and then take the best out of us by writing our notes. Okay, so how do you go about labeling? Start to give them a range to your villains at the table, especially live. Yeah, live is even tougher because of the low sample. But I try to talk to friends who played them already. So this is a big plus. And if not, focus on showdowns, even when you're not in the hand. Every showdown that you see, you should have at least one note coming out pretty much live, because there you don't have hotkeys or anything. So every sizing could tell you something. Just write it down, make your mind up later what that could mean. Something like that. You have plenty of time on the live table to do that kind of stuff instead of looking at your phone or watch like Netflix on your iPad on the side. Okay, and the third question, I guess I answered that slightly already. From Tom now, very nice structure of the question. I struggle myself structuring my posts in Slack, but this looks great. And he asks, I watch good players who put out free content, but it seems they don't always agree, but I assume are all winning. First of all, that is wrong. So not everyone who's doing content is winning, but yeah. I sometimes develop multiple personality disorder when trying to apply what I see these players doing. For example, I see some players, Jaredman, Banner Badbeat, shout out to them, very great players, that seems to try to focus on being as close to theory as possible, or so it sounds. Seems like a good place to start. So we have to put that into some context here as well. First of all, who are those players? They are really playing the game. They try to make money with the game. What they show you is not necessarily everything they're actually applying. Right? It's like, I know I have spots where I'm heavily overfolding, but had the feeling in stream I cannot do it because it's just like too much of an exploit and just like telling everyone this nit always has it. So this is why lots of this type of content producers, they do those because this is part of their studying as well. And they focus on that because it's just their baseline. Why should they don't need to deviate? They don't need to tell everyone they are playing against what their reads are. So focusing on that is pretty great. Their thought process. If you listen to Jared Man on those YouTube videos, awesome thought process, right? Really nailing it down. That doesn't mean that he is never exploiting, right? Maybe it seems like that in the videos. I didn't watch all of them, so I'm not really sure. I just had a quick look at them. But yeah, this is something you can learn. But this can be part of your how to study poker, part 1, what would be right. Look at that. What is his framework? Which wardrobes does he build on certain boards? Write it down, right? It's like King 7 deuce, range bet 25%. Maybe he even says it, right? 3-bet pot out of position, 10-5 deuce. Does he use 75%, 50%, or even goes with a small bet? Does he explain the reason? Perfect input. He can take lots of solver work away or help you, right? When you don't use a solver or anything, right? It's just perfect. I see some players, the wacko, that seem to take very uncommon sizes and lines, but maybe just a more complex strategy. Right, it's called the wacko show. I'm not sure. He enjoys the game. He likes to put puzzles out there. But I can tell you, we are very, very thinking alike regarding that. I was always a multi-tabler, so I was heavily into simplification. He never was a big multi-tabler, I guess. So he's really looking at the spot and like trying to put out puzzles there to not exploit people to the maximum, but play a very, very complex pile wardrobe. Or something that makes sense. Don't want to say pile wardrobe. So this is still something to learn from. Well, what is his thought process there? Could it work in your world as well? We started the session today with there are lots of correct answers. There is not really there is a wrong, but not really a right so far. We can solve part situations and we have ideas. But it's not like that if someone else is doing something a little bit different, it's not wrong, right? Take my Ace King 4 example from the content videos. Sometimes I'm using wardrobe number 1. Sometimes I'm using wardrobe number 2. Both of them are totally valid, in my opinion. I see Ginge Poker who seems to focus on very different aspects than others. I cannot comment too much on that because he comes over as kind of a field player. He definitely knows his basics, but I've seen like ridiculous folds because he just feels it. Right? We're like, I was sharing hand histories with other recs, not sharing hand histories, but they wrote me in Sky like, look what happened here and what he said in stream. We're like, I don't know. I have some hands in mind where he just folds something ridiculous versus a bluff because, well, if I'm like with things like that are just untrue, where like, if I call here, I need to call down the river as well. Maybe if you put it in other terms and he's saying, yeah, people who are bluffing here are always going for the river. And this is why I make my overfold decision here. This is often the context that is missing because he comes over as like enjoying the game and fun and is not talking deeply about strategy. So actually that might be some exploits that he is not necessarily talking that in depth about. And obviously there's something to learn from as well. Write it down. What is his wardrobe in those spots? What is he doing there? Is he talking about his assumptions? Verify those assumptions for your games. Make your own mind up. Okay, is it even worth looking at them from a strategy point of view or leave it to just entertainment? It's definitely worth it. This is part of your what could be right. What are people doing wrong? You can learn from all that. This is all great stuff out there. And yeah, it's not, you should never have the goal of I copy him and then I win. It's like, no, this is not, you can learn from it, take the best out of it and build your stuff, right? It's your game that you're playing, your level that you are on. It's like your specific villains you are playing against. I'm sure like if you just do what I do when I play higher stakes and stream it maybe, and you do it on NL10, maybe it's not really winning. It might be the case, right? And yeah, because, well, if I would play on NL10, I would play totally differently. Not only when it's the goose hunt, but yeah. Okay, let's wrap it up here. I guess that was the last one, yeah. With lots of talking, lots of stories. Great that you all have been here. And I guess, yeah, let's keep going. I will probably next video coming out next week. It was a blast again. See you guys in Slack. I think I gave you plenty of reasons to start threads there to talk about stuff together. I will have a look. Yeah, enjoy the process and see you next time.